Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Connected and Committed podcast.
Yes.
Every time. We hope you guys are doing very well. This has been a very interesting weekend. Today's we're recording on I think Tuesday, but it's definitely been a very interesting week. A lot of ups and downs, and we won't go too much detail. Obviously, we'll find out more information when time comes, but which is a lot of different emotions, a lot of different experiences, and luckily feeling a little more stabilized now, and just kind of really in like a in between space right now, but just trusting the Lord and all of that. But just kind of ran that, like, obviously just keep us in your prayers, and we will know more information soon, and hoping all things are good. But yeah, it's random when you like you never expect random things to show up, right? Like obviously, in my mind, I always expect only good things. That's just kind of like obviously, I feel like I'm a pretty optimistic person, and if things go different than how it plans or how I expected, it definitely obviously catches you by surprise, but also kind of puts you in a state of anxiety because you just are now you're like in uncertainty, you're like unsure what's going on, which actually relates to our theme today. You see how I just did that? That
hmm
was great. But our what we're going to talk about today actually is how when your reality doesn't match your expectations and how that actually can cause more anxiety. So we have a lot of people who reach out to us who, especially like my clients, who are in relationships and it's a great one, but just because it looks different than how they expected it will look, they start questioning their current relationship. And it kind of brings up a lot more anxiety and uncertainty and like more questions. And we want to address that today. And hopefully, this brings some clarity for those who are in that space and puts you on at least a little bit of direction on what to do next if this is where you're at.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So, with this like topic, like I think like at least for me, I think a lot of maybe we can talk about like what are some things that have like shaped how when we grew up, what would our expectations we thought would look like kind of like shaped our expectations, I should say. Um, I know for me, obviously, I've mentioned this before. I'm a huge Disney fanatic. So I think like what I saw on Disney Channel or even like Nickelodeon or Nick Jr. whatever, not Nick Jr. Nickelodeon, and just like things on TV. This is way before social media, you know. So that was like my expectations really came from what I saw, but also like I was in a lot of I grew up in a culture of people who definitely got married at like 19, 20, 21. Like I was very normal for people to get married pretty quickly, which a lot of my friends have been married now for like 10 plus years because they got married so young.
Mm.
Which is cool. I love that. And they're great marriages, but just kind of this thing of you go to high school, like you're in college, you find that person or you're in a church thing, you meet at church, you meet at youth group or whatever, and then you guys like start dating and then you guys get married. And it's just like really easy and like we have this like, there's a lot of expectations you might think like okay we hear all the time like you're the man is leading the spiritual thing in a relationship. We hear those things. We don't know what it looks like. We hear those things all the time. Or just like I don't know. I obviously had a lot of expectations of things feeling really easy, people knowing pretty quickly, and it just being very smooth.
Yeah.
And just like this like feeling like oh you know type of thing. So I'm curious like what that's like for you.
Well, I mean, I think for me, I didn't grow up in the church, so it was different. But I also had, uh, I'd say, an idealized version of relationships. Mostly growing up because my parents were high school sweethearts. Like they met when they were like 15.
I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, and they're like, I remember because they're saying it was like a party
Mm.
and like they like had a kind of love at first sight moment. And then yeah, then they were married for almost 20 years, but then they got divorced. So that's when my vision of relationships kind of like um changed.
Mm.
And then I went to church, and then my vision of relationship there was taught to be, this kind of thing also with like, oh, there's one person that God has for you, and you have to find that one person. Otherwise, like you're gonna miss out on what God has for you. And especially like, people are talking about, being able to serve God together, and probably also in a sense of like doing ministry together. Um, and so that was kind of like the thing where like you had to find that one
Mm.
person, and then everything would make sense, I guess.
Yeah. I remember, I think too, like in my youth ministry, it was very cool to want to be a pastor or missionary or like a pastor's wife. So I do remember thinking like, yeah, I'm going to be doing ministry together with my husband and we're just going to be leading like, I don't know, youth ministry, like things that, because you thought
Yeah,
that was like what you should want, you know? And so I think that that
yeah.
was definitely driven from my expectations for sure. It was like what ministry looks like. It's like really highlighted to have like this ministry focused marriage because then I feel like it really feels like the Lord is on your side when you're just like serving Him, you know? Um,
It's interesting how that generation was like that, though.
it is interesting. I don't know
I
if
don't
it's
know
like
how
that
this
now.
generation is
Yeah,
with that, but when I see that, I usually am like, that's not. I just don't feel like that's what people should look forward
strive
to,
for.
or like, yeah, or like that's not. I feel like if everybody in your church, or like all the youth in your church, their ambition is to do ministry, I just feel like you're not. There's something you're not doing right,
Hmm.
because that's not true. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? So there's just so much more. I mean, ministry is everywhere, right?
right.
So, anyways,
That's true. I think if we think only ministry is just specifically in the church, and then we're missing out a lot of ministry.
I'm sort of be on stage, and
Yeah.
I was like that. So I
Oh,
was like,
same.
yeah, I think this is the main character energy.
And it's think what you see is like what's highlighted in your church, you know. But obviously, that's not everyone's experience. It's just maybe people who grew up in the church where we both were from, and I'm sure a bunch of you guys maybe had that experience too. But I think a lot of the times when we're in those situations, it starts shaping, like, because you're single at those moments, and so you start shaping what you think your life is going to look like once you find that person. Of if you're really driven into ministry, then you're thinking this person's going to be really heavily in the church, for example, and like maybe an evangelist and all you've created a picture of what you think
A
this
worship leader.
person, yep, of course, worship leader, like, yeah, you've created this picture of what this person's going to look like. And so it's kind of like because of that, you in the back of your mind, even as you're dating, that thing can still be in the back of your mind, even if it had, if especially if it hasn't been addressed, because there's still a part of you that might think that this, if this image is accurate, then I'm really on the right track for what I've always wanted, quote unquote wanted. And once you start getting in a relationship, we start having the clients where I'm in a relationship and it's great, and I know it's great, but then some of the things I always thought I would have is not showing up here, and then it starts feeling like something maybe is missing, and then we start having the questions of what if there's someone else better for me, or what if I'm in the wrong relationship, or what if like I'm just settling for something that's good but it could be great, like, you know, I mean, we start questioning all these things
Yeah,
because our expectations are actually driving our anxiety rather than like looking at what's right in front of us and being seeing the good in that. It's hard to see good in something when the back of your mind you are telling yourself there's supposed to be something so significantly better. I'm supposed to have the perfect amount of feelings, like I'm supposed to be in a relationship where the person has been saved all of their life. And so they're always reading the Bible all the time and speaking in tongues and fasting and praying. So like they're leading me, and like I should have all these things. Like everything should feel like this, you know?
yeah,
And I think this is a good example of like I remember like sometimes you hype things up so much in your mind that when you get there, you're like, oh, it's not bad. It was great, but I thought it was going to be perfect. And then it wasn't perfect. So it kind of was like anticlimactic and kind of just like, it can feel like a letdown. You know what I mean? Like if you're
yeah,
like, sometimes it feels like wait for Christmas for me, which is weird because I love Christmas. But for some reason, the last couple of years has kind of felt like, oh, because I think in my mind, Christmas is the best thing ever. And I'm hyping it up the days leading up to Christmas. That I don't know why I'm expecting this like feeling to show up on the day of Christmas. And then it happens. And then I'm like, this was fine. Like if I moved what I thought it would be like, this would actually be a great day. But for some reason I had this picture of this feeling that was supposed to happen for me. And then for some reason, the last couple of years, I've been kind of let down. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, this is actually was a great day. But I've built it up in my mind, you know, and I think that happens so much in relationships too, where we build up this picture and then we get in this relationship and then we're like, huh, is this how it's supposed to feel like? Because it feels like maybe I'm disappointed that this wasn't how it was.
Yeah, but I think it's something that we do for a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's
Like what?
I mean, I feel like everything you put your heart or mind to,
Mm.
you set expectations, and then when they're not met, you can be disappointed. I
Yeah.
think that having expectations kind of opens you up to disappointment, um, which is annoying, but I guess it's part of the human life, I guess. And I think sometimes, obviously, your expectations are met or surpassed, and that's great. Usually, for me, it's when we travel.
Mm.
But
They're met.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
so that's great. But you know, it's yeah, it is what it is, and I think relationships, obviously, it's probably one of the biggest ones where we set false expectations, or we don't realize that they're false expectations, and until we're like hit with reality, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. And the I think the reality part is what we're wanting to talk about even more today, because I think really the question that it's helpful to ask ourselves is the relationship actually great? You know what I mean? Is a relationship actually a great situation? Is it more that my expectations are causing it to feel like it's not? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've had, again, I'm working with a few clients right now where they've maybe had this picture in their mind, because maybe even in the past they had a past relationship where the feelings were at a 10 and everything was so crazy, unknown and all uncertain, and wasn't, it was kind of toxic, but whatever. And then they get into a relationship right now and everything feels normal. It just feels normal. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're out of town and then you're not feeling super excited that like you're not feeling like I miss them so much, or like you say you love them, but you don't feel like a bunch of oomph when you say it. You're like, oh, I love you, but it doesn't feel like I'm like feeling so bubbly and overwhelmed when I say it every single day. When I'm thinking about this person, it's not like they're constantly on my mind.
Yeah.
And we think that that's how it's supposed to feel like, because that's what it feels like sometimes when we're 13 and in love. You know what I mean? Like it feels like this person is literally every fiber in your being is like vibrating with this person. And then when you get into like a healthy, stable adult relationship, that's great, it may not feel like that because of a lot of different reasons. And we can sometimes second guess what that means because it doesn't feel like it's what it's supposed to look like. Um, and that's just one example. It's just talking about feelings, but I think it can show up again in a lot of different areas where you finally maybe are in this, you're in a relationship that this might be it. Like for some of you, you guys are in the relationship that is going to be the one that's end game. Like you're going to marry this person, you know, like
Endgame.
it's end game, right? Um,
That sounds so like negative.
Okay, the end game. I think that sounds awesome. Like
Which is it, I guess.
it's it, but end game is a thing. It's a phrase people know. Americans know. Um, and you're there, but then you're kind of sabotaging it on your own unintentionally because you're thinking that it's supposed to be more than what it is, and maybe you hear someone else experiencing something as they met someone 2 weeks ago, and then they're feeling something more than what you're experiencing now. That like 6 7 months, you know, it just is different, and our expectations are great. And I think it's great to feel like I'm dreaming about this experience that someday will look like and I someday will have it. But if it doesn't look exactly how you thought it was going to look, does not mean that it's wrong. And it also doesn't mean that like your expectations were like too high or anything. I just want to say that it was just different. And a lot of the times when you're in a relationship that's good, it's just going to be good. It's not going to be like a fireworks and butterflies and level 10 all the time. Or it may not look exactly like maybe you met someone who's newly Christian. Like maybe they've been Christian for the last couple of years and not all of their life. And so they're in a whole different maybe experience than what you thought you would be in right now. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just is different. And I think it's okay because I guess what is your perspective on people, because you might have this experience and then you think that it's supposed to look like this and it's not like that. It's, I think it's okay to grieve what you thought it could be, but doesn't mean we should just stay in that and only think it has to look like that in order for us to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think, like I'm thinking, I mean, it's kind of random, but I'm thinking about the trip that we took with friends. We went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and it was for Christmas. And we had like expectations, because I don't know, we saw people, we went there and they looked fun, and looked up some stuff on social media or whatever, and then we went there and it was like, dang, like this is kind of a letdown, this place, like if everything feels run down, abandoned,
Yeah, it was
there's
interesting.
nothing. There's a couple things that were fun, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, I guess we did have this moment where like we were kind of like, this is not great, but still we're having fun because we're with our friends,
Hmm.
and we're gonna focus on the good stuff and make it, make it fun either way,
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the thing too. But I think the problem with having expectations and like being frustrated, or being like becoming anxious because maybe we feel like we're settling or whatever because we're not, our expectations aren't necessarily met. Um, I think the problem is because people also like, it's probably, there's probably a lot of control in there, like it's
Hmm.
people like wanting to, because really your expectations are mostly about how some things outside of yourself are going to make you feel. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So you want to set your expectations. You're like, oh well, I'm so excited for this because I feel like I'm gonna feel like this when this happens and when that happens and all that. When I find the right person, I'm gonna feel like that. And it's always like, well, okay, so every time like the way you feel is gonna rely on whatever um, output, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like things are outside of yourself are gonna make you feel, and the problem is that those things are outside of yourself, so that means they're really not, you don't have control over those
Yeah.
things. And so that, I think it is normal that things sometimes won't feel like that, even like if you have expectations for, um again, us like traveling, like we have like for example, we went to Italy, we had expectations where like we want to find like the best pizza. Like we have our favorite pizza place is here in Austin. It's called Numero 28.
Plug
Um,
plug.
and we know, we went to Italy like 3 times now, and 4 times for me. And it's always, and we were like, hey, we need to find like the best pizza. Like there is no way that our favorite pizza here in Austin, like we can't find a place that's going to top it in Italy. And we have not found the place that topped it in Italy. Okay, well, it didn't top it. Talking about the place in the mountains.
Yeah.
Well,
From my perspective, it was either just as good or better. I can't remember anymore. It was so
okay,
long ago.
yeah. I mean,
It's carbonara pizza. I never had that again.
it was, but it's the thing. It's like we went back with that and more ready than ever. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we went back this time. We're like, we're more ready than ever. We are doing some research, asking locals, looking up on Google, whatever it is, and really trying to find like really good pizza. And we found okay pizza everywhere we went. Like the dough was fine, but like it's so.
So
Anyways,
yeah.
it's like, okay, well, dang, like it's kind of crazy. We were at some point we just kind of gave up, but not like gave up in the sense of like, oh, we were so disappointed and we're so sad. No, it was like, okay, well, that's fine. Let's focus on like what is good in
The pasta
this.
and
Yeah,
tiramisu.
yeah. And so we actually focused on pasta and tiramisu because those we actually thought were better. Our tiramisu, we did find a really good place here in Austin, but pasta though, we found like amazing pasta over there that
I've
we,
never found good pasta here. So
yeah, we
yeah.
can't replicate here. And it's like, oh wow, like this is it. And even other things, other dishes, not because
Yeah.
Italy is more than pizza and pasta. um but yeah, and it was great, and we have such good memory of that because it's like, oh, we found like things that were good, but not
Hmm.
necessarily the things that we expected, you know.
This is a really good analogy because I love it because I think that that's if we're thinking about it from that perspective, this is what we do. If we went going into Italy thinking that I'm only here to find good pizza, and if I don't have good pizza, then this isn't a good place, and
Mm,
I won't ever go here again, or I'm gonna be really disappointed. This is what we do. We go in thinking that I'm this has to look exactly like this, rather than being like, okay, maybe it's not this, but what other things are there that are incredible? You know what I mean? And I'm
Hmm.
glad that we did that because it allowed us to see other really good foods that were in Italy that are obviously there. But if you're so fixated on one thing needing to look exactly like this, you miss so many other good things that you could have had that are in this relationship, right? That we aren't initially looking for because we were looking for this one specific thing,
Yeah.
like feelings or spiritually being led exactly like this, or whatever else you're thinking about in a relationship. I don't know why those two things are the only things that are coming in my mind, but there's so many things that we have expectations for in a relationship that are always adjusted, or that might not be exactly how it is when we're in a relationship. And we either can sit and be disappointed and start questioning and be filled with anxiety and start questioning all these things, that maybe this is wrong and maybe something else could be better if I was in another relationship. Or we can be like, let's pause. Let's say this is not the exact way it's going to look. Maybe my feelings won't be 100% all the time. That's fine. But what other things are here that are really, really, really good? Like, this person is so safe for me. This person is so kind to me. This person is handsome. Great. This person is so attentive to my feelings and is so like fun. We have such a great time together. We actually have a lot of things in common. We're able to do random things and have a good time. Like,
Yeah.
those are all incredible things that we can kind of just like minimize because we're looking for one specific thing that our mind just can't let go of. And just because it's the biggest thing in your mind does not mean that it's the most important thing you should be focusing on.
Yeah, and I think, even if another story that kind of like could be similar, or like can be used as a metaphor, is just like Jesus in general, when like he came, and so many like
Hmm.
Jewish people expected him to be kind of taking over the Romans, and kind of like having the Romans leave Israel, or like to fight, create an army and fight back against the Romans. That's what people were there to expect, but that's not what Jesus was there for. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so a lot of people were came to Jesus and were disappointed because that's not he wasn't what they expected.
Hmm.
And so it's like, oh my gosh, so you turned down Jesus because he was not what you expected.
Hmm.
His kingdom was not about taking over an earthly kingdom. It was about spiritual awakening, being free in the spirit, not being free from the Romans. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's interesting. It's probably the same thing that people do with relationships. And I think people want to, because the thing with expectations is you create an idea of someone,
Hmm.
and then you meet someone and they're not your idea,
Yep.
and so you discard them or the relationship, because or you start being anxious because they don't necessarily meet your expectations. And I think that's not necessarily fair to do that. That's not fair to do that, because you're comparing a real person with an idea.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a person in front of you is a real person. Like, it's a person with history, with a background, with his own journey, and yeah, and its own traumas too, like its own flaws and its own strength. And it's like, and that's what you're deciding to choose or not.
Yeah.
So I think that's also where a decision needs to be made. If you're anxious, it's like, am I wanting to keep going to find an idea and hoping I find something that is like my idea, and you literally have no guarantee, because again, it's an idea. Or am I going to choose this person who's real and who has good things that would be good for a relationship to make the relationship successful? So that's where you need to be able to make that difference and discernment, because you're not getting
Yeah.
married to an idea. You're getting married to a person.
Hmm.
And for you to feel like a person is not enough, we're talking about good, healthy relationships,
Right.
okay? um, in that situation, for you to discard a relationship because a person is not your idea, then really you don't really understand what love is, or marriage. Where like marriage is about choosing someone, not choosing an idea that makes you feel good.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know?
That's really good. Yeah, I think that that's exactly right. Where we are, it, it's a dream, it's a fantasy, and it's an idea. It's not real, right? It's only real unless you're experiencing it in real time and with a real person, and that's what's going to stick. And I think it's okay for us to readjust our expectations. I think sometimes we hold so tightly to these because we feel like this is right, or this is what we need, or I don't know, we always just thought we were going to have that. And so it's just hard to let those things go. And I think that again, sometimes anxiety can sneak in there. And when we let go of an expectation, we kind of feel like, are we settling? Are we letting go of God's best, quote unquote? Like I've heard those things so many times where it sounds very spiritual to say like, you don't want to let go of God's best. It sounds so nice, but then what does that actually mean? We don't know. We don't know. Um, but you letting go of a good relationship for this hope, maybe, hopefully, potentially that this will align exactly how expectations are. I feel like it's really, it sounds silly to say it out loud, right? To be like, why would I let go of something that actually is real in front of me that I know is really good for a hopeful fantasy that might happen, you know? And also just being able to readjust expectations that maybe I have always been told it'd be like this, but maybe it's not like this. And that's okay. It doesn't mean something is wrong in this relationship because I actually can see a lot of really good fruit here.
Mm.
Um, and again, like I'm sure that Matthew and I could share certain things when we were dating back in the day. It was so long ago now. We're gonna be 6 years on Saturday. It's
That's
crazy.
true.
That's crazy. 6 years married, 7 years together. Wow. And so like that would be 7 years ago to go back to think about how what was happening when we were dating. It's a blur sometimes, but we might have had expectations of how we thought things would look. And if we only held tightly to that, we wouldn't be together now. And what a disservice that would have been, even for, I'm not trying to be like whatever, but like I know our business has been so helpful for a lot of people. And just to think that maybe this wouldn't have happened because we would have held tightly on an expectation that we thought was right would have been just a really big disservice for us, just even stage for us. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's just good to look at that to feel like, is my relationship great? And I think a lot of us would say yes. Is it perfect? No, because it's not supposed to be perfect. And let go of any idea that it's supposed to be perfect because it's never going to be that way. It's always going to be some sort of like, we're humans. So let's make that very clear. But is my relationship great? Yes. Are my expectations at a time I thought great? I'm sure they were. But is my expectations keeping me from seeing my good relationship now? And a lot of us can probably say, yes, it is. So what am I letting go? My expectations or my relationship? That's a very big question to ask yourself
Mm.
because I think for a lot of us, we don't want to let go of our relationships. I think that's why our anxiety is showing up a lot because we do care about our relationships. We want this. So what matters more? Holding tightly to what I thought I wanted and expectations or the relationship I have right now? Like we have to be able to pick one and then let go of the other. And I'm going to say for you make that choice for yourself. You have the power to choose. You will make great decisions, but do not let your decisions be, sorry, do not let your decisions be made from anxiety and from fear, but be made from something that we know is true right now. What we know is certain. We only should make decisions based off what we know is 100% true at that time. And I think that is what's in front of you. That's your relationship. Your relationships for who listening right now who are in healthy relationships, they're good and they're great. And if we were to be truly honest with ourselves, I think we know that this is a good thing. We sometimes are so fearful of like again this uncertainty that we hold tightly to things that we just feel like hold tightly to things that we don't even know are 100% because we just are so afraid of letting go of what we thought was right.
Hmm.
And so what we're telling you today is, are you like, are you ready to let go of this idea of what you thought it was supposed to be and just dive in 100% to what is now? That's the question I think that we're just going to leave you guys with. Um, and if that's something where you're like, I still want to just make sure I need some clarity or whatever, um, hey, RA, that's always a thing. You can always join RA. That is always 100%. Like we have a Q&A actually today, which by the time you listen to this, it won't be today, but we have 2 Q&As a month. We have master classes that like hit directly to a lot of the things that you might be believing or feeling or questioning or doubting. We have master classes that hit directly those things. And we'll put the link below and you can look through actually all of the master classes that we have in the link. And so if those sound interesting to you and sound like something that would actually help address like some of the fears that you're having, I 100% recommend you join RAA. Again, I'll put the link below. I still have, well, I'll have to see because I just got some more applications in today, so I'll have to look through those. But I believe I have some spots open for coaching 101. I'll have to see once I look through these applications right now. But if it's available, that will link that as well, and you can join. You can do 101 with me as well. It's a time and money investment, but I've had a lot of success with that as well. And so those are the two things for now. We do have a course coming up that we're almost done recording it, and then once that's done, that'll be out, and we're really excited about that because that'll be
Mm.
really really helpful. So maybe we'll put a wait list for that very soon, but it's coming up. It won't be done until probably June.
Mm.
So be on the lookout for that as well. But we hope this was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, don't forget to do all the things you need to do, whether whatever platform you're listening to, if you're on YouTube, if you're on podcast, subscribe, like, rate, comment, share, do all the things. And we love you all so much.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.
And we'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.